This video is on circumference of a circle. It's part of our geometry unit. And we're going to go over first the parts of a circle. A circle has many specific parts, including the radius. The radius is known as r, and the distance from the center of the circle to the outside edge. Then we have the diameter, d. A straight line that passes through the center of the circle. It has two endpoints on the circle. And then we have circumference. The big C. The distance around the circle. So we're going to label this circle right here. My lines may not be straight. But this line right here is the radius. This big line here is the diameter. And then the distance around this circle right here is the circumference. Using this diagram, let's describe how the diameter and radius are related. If you look, the radius, because this would be a radius too from this point to here, the radius is half the diameter. And if we look at it this way, the diameter is twice the radius. So let's look at that a little bit closer. Mike and his friends work at a tire factory. The factory manufactures several different size tires for different vehicles. Fill out the table below to show how the diameter and the circumference of the tires are related. All right, if we look at here, here's an X column and here's a Y. Okay, so on the toddler bike, 43.96 divided by 14. So that's the circumference divided by the diameter. It's going to give you pi. So that's going to be the same for all of these down at this table. So let's go ahead and fill that in. And if you put these in the calculator, you're going to get 3.142. So, all right, and then what patterns? So what this is saying is the circumference divided by the diameter is approximately 3.14, which is pi. We look at the back side of that, talks about circumference. And there are two formulas to find circumference, depending on what you're given in the circle. But the circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle. It can be found by using two formulas. Circumference equals pi d and circumference equals 2 pi r. This is when I said you needed some index cards so that we can start making flashcards for our formulas. And pi can be approximated to 3.14. All right. In circle 1, we have a radius of 6. So we have a radius. So we would use this formula right here. So our formula is equal to 2 pi r, where r is the radius. So we're going to plug in the values. We have 2. Pi is approximately 3.14, and the radius is 6. So if you're given a question when it says in terms of pi, you would multiply 6 times 2 is 12. And then in the place of 3.14, you would put pi. So that means 12 times 3.14. And then for our circumference, we get, if we multiply that, 37.68 inches. In our next circle 2, we have a diameter which goes all the way through the middle of the circle. And that formula is circumference equals pi d. We plug in the values, 3.14 times the diameter, which is 14, And then in terms of pi, we have 14 pi. And then that circumference is 4396.96 centimeters. This is 14 right here. And the last circle uses the radius again. So we've got circumference equals 2 pi r. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 3.5. And in terms of pi, 2 times 3.5 is 7. And then we put pi. And then if we multiply those two, we get the circumference equals 21.98 meters. So we've got to know those two formulas. All right, and then this last example down here. A Ferris wheel travels in a circular motion, which would be circumference, and measures 40 meters from the top to the bottom of the car. So it's like this. To the bottom. What is the length of the radius of the Ferris wheel? So if it goes 40 meters from top to the bottom, your radius is half of that, which would be 20 meters. What is the length of the diameter of the Ferris wheel? The diameter is twice the radius, or it gives us in the problem, which is 40 meters. Car travels one time around the Ferris wheel. So it goes around the circumference. Goes around the circumference one time. How many meters did the car travel? Circumference equals pi times d, which is 3.14 times 40, and that equals 125.6 meters. On another Ferris wheel, a car will travel 148 meters to go once around the wheel. What is the height from the top of the car to the bottom? This question is asking you for the diameter because this gives you the circumference. So circumference equals pi d. The circumference is 100.48 equals 3.14 d. At this point, you can use what you've learned with the calculator and solve for d. Remember to put x in for d. And when you do that, the diameter rounded up is 32.